All right, here we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Wisdom and Wanderlust. My name is Michael Bennett, co-founder of ExploreX, and as always, I'm joined by my two colleagues, friends, and our expert travel designers, Robin and Amanda. On behalf of the entire ExploreX team around the world, we want to thank you for being with us today. We're super excited. We've got our good friend, Mike Healy, with us today. We're going to dive into a really great conversation about the many rich layers of Vietnam. But before we jump into that conversation, a few notes for you. If you are new to the ExploreX community, you can obviously learn more about who we are, what we do, what makes us so special on our website, which is explore-x.com. Also a note, we did recently launch, and we've announced this towards the end of these webinars in the past, but wanted to really bring this to the forefront because it's something we're very excited about. We recently launched our new membership program. So it's a program that's filled with lots of exciting benefits for travelers to take advantage of. Even now, I mean, I know we can't travel right now, or for most of us, travel is not much of an option, but there's still some really, really cool tools, programs, services that you can take advantage of by signing up for our membership program. So you can learn more about that at explore-x.com/join. Also, which reminds me, beginning next month, so beginning in September, we're going to be hosting monthly member meetups. So these are virtual gatherings for members only. We'll get together on Zoom, have a very casual, fun, lighthearted conversation. People can ask questions of the ExploreX team. We'll be sharing best travel practices and much more. So if you're a member, you should have already gotten an email about that and how to sign up for that. But if you haven't, or if you're interested in learning more about that, just send us an email, hello@explore-x.com. A couple other quick things. We did recently launch our destinations page on our website. It's something that Amanda and our team have worked really, really hard on over the past few months. And this page highlights some of the destinations that we most frequently send travelers to, places like Greenland and Morocco and Ecuador and Vietnam. So we invite you to check it out, learn more about these destinations, learn more about some of the amazing experiences you can have there. And of course, if you have any questions, we'd love to talk to you. So you can always email us at hello@explorer-x.com. And I think that's about it. If you don't already follow us on social media, please be sure to do that on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at GoExploreX. And I think that's it for me for right now. Amanda?
Yes, I do have a few housekeeping items for everyone. We're going to keep this as close to an hour as possible. We, as Michael said, are recording this and it will be available afterward. We'll email everyone a link. And if you have any general questions as we go along today, please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen and we'll answer those as we go through the conversation.
Sweet, thank you. So one of the fun things that we started doing recently was our question of the week, which gives our listeners and our travelers a chance to sort of connect with us maybe at a more personal level. And I really love this week's question of the week. It's one that's been inspired by the many culinary experiences travelers can have in Vietnam, which I'm sure Mike will tell us more about in a few minutes. So this week's question of the week is, what is the most adventurous food experience you've had while traveling? Robin, I'm going to throw it to you first.
All right. Hi, you guys. I would say that the first thing that comes to mind is the guinea pig that I had in Peru, which is like a pretty common dish for them to have out there. And you'll visit people's homes and they'll just have guinea pigs running around on the floor that they eat eventually. So yeah, I tried that. And it just
what's it called in Peru? There's a name for it, yeah?
I don't remember.
Cuy, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it just tasted like chicken, but like with less meat and harder to harder to get more meat off of one of those little guinea pigs.
You never had a guinea pig as a pet, did you?
No, I didn't.
I had a guinea pig as a pet. And so I'm traumatized when I go to Peru and I see them running around, and then I always think of my little, I was like 8 years old, I had a little guinea pig called Speedy. And I always think of Speedy and how I would never eat him. But anyway.
Oh, that may have been traumatizing for you.
I didn't try it. I didn't try Cuy when I was in Peru, so that's all right. Amanda, what about you?
To be honest, I'm not the most adventurous eater, but I did try cuy in Ecuador, and agree it was tricky to get much meat, um, but it wasn't terrible. But my most adventurous is probably haggis in Scotland, which I tried not to think about too closely, but was pleasantly surprised. It wasn't nearly as gross as I thought it might be. It's a traditional meal served with, they call it neeps and tatties, which are turnips and potatoes. But the main ingredient is minced, I believe, sheep heart, liver, and lungs. So it's kind of all minced together and then mixed with oats and spices and then encased in the stomach lining, or now sometimes they use artificial casings, and it's boiled. And then they cut it open and dish it out and serve it with the potatoes and turnips. And it sounds not pleasant, but it's got quite a bit of a spice to it. I was pleasantly surprised, well, as long as I wasn't thinking about what I was actually eating, but it tasted good. The texture is a little interesting, but it was all right. I'd recommend giving it a try at least once.
It reminds me of, I grew up in Philly, and it reminds me of Scrapple, this sort of like meat-ish product that we have that they throw a bunch of spices in so it tastes better, and it's like ground up leftover parts of pig and things like that. And it's probably, if you knew what was in there, you probably wouldn't eat it, but if you don't know what's in there, it tastes really good. So
yeah.
Crazy. So all right, I'll share my story. And it's a story. Can I, like, I know we got to talk about Vietnam, but I'll quickly try to share this. So I was in southern France in the fall of 2018. I was in Aix-en-Provence, and I was there meeting some friends, and I got in a day early, and I was walking around that night, and I was like, I want to find some really cool, quaint local place. I had this vision of what I wanted in my head, and I passed by this store, and it's very rustic, iron and wood. And I look inside, and there's this, overweight guy with a shaved head and a big beard, writing on a chalkboard with his apron. And I'm like, there's 6 tables inside. I'm like, this is exactly what I'm looking for. So I go in, and we, you know me, I start a conversation with the guy, and we start chatting for 20 minutes. And eventually I'm like, all right, like, I'm hungry, let's eat. And he's like, well, what's on the menu? And he's going through all of these things. And it's like you, Amanda, I am not an adventurous eater. And he's like listing off things that I'm just like, nope, not doing marrow, not doing that, not doing that, not doing that. I'm like, all right, well, I'm out of here then. I'm just going to leave. And I said goodbye, and I got about 50 feet out the door, and I was like, wait a minute, like, this is what travel's about, right? It's about experimenting and trying new things and pushing comfort zones and all of those things. And so I marched back in there, and I was super excited. I was feeling really good about myself. I said, nope, I want a table. And he's like, yeah, we don't open for 2 hours. I was like, all right. So I left, and I was really hungry. So I ate somewhere else, and I was pretty disappointed that I didn't get to have that experience. And then the next day, my friend picked me up, and we were doing a little walking tour of the city. And she's like, all right, I've got a really special experience for you today. And she's like, it's a great little restaurant. You're going to love it. And we walked in, out of the hundreds of restaurants in Aix-en-Provence, we walked into this guy's restaurant again. And so we got to have a meal, but he has some very unique things on the menu. And the lunch of the day was pig's head pie. So in essence, they take the pig's head, from what I understand, they throw it in a pot, they boil it till all the non-skeletal things fall off. Then they grind it up and put it into the shape of a pie, throw in some cheese, and there you go. And so it was not the most delicious thing I've ever had. I don't know that I'd have it again, but I did stomach my way through it, and the wine was quite good, so that made it better.
That always helps.
The wine helps.
So,
well, no part of the pig has gone to waste, so.
I know. So, all right. Well, guys, thanks for sharing. That was awesome. All right, we're going to get to our main event here. And we are, as I mentioned before, super excited to have someone who's become a good friend of ours, Mike Healy, with us today. Mike has been in the travel industry for over 8 years. He's traveled to Vietnam at last count over 15 times, maybe more. And as I said, Mike's become a real trusted colleague and friend. We plan a lot of travel to Southeast Asia, and Mike is always the go-to for us, and we work with him very, very closely. So Mike, Good to have you here, man. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to, even though we can't be technically traveling right now, at least we can do it through a conversation, which is, all we can do right now. So looking forward to it.
We can at least get inspired, right? And hear more about and begin to dream, right? Or continue dreaming anyway.
Yeah, I mean, my brain is traveling mentally all the time anyway, so it's really not too much of a difference. I'm in the south of France in the morning and in the islands of Thailand in the evening. So that's what I do.
That sounds quite lovely. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? Where do you live now?
Yeah, absolutely. So originally I grew up right outside of Boston, and I went out to Colorado for school, went to University of Colorado Boulder. As happens with most people there, everyone falls in love with Colorado, with the mountains, with the people, with the lifestyle. Just kind of never left after that. And so I've been living in Denver ever since I graduated school, of course, aside from time I've taken off to travel, but I always seem to find my way back here.
Awesome. And were you always traveling? Did you start traveling at a young age, or really where did this sense of wanderlust and passion for travel come from?
Yeah, so as I just kind of noted, I've always had a pretty wild imagination. I think all my grade school teachers would attest to that. And I actually didn't even get a passport until my senior year of college. And the only reason I got it is because I didn't really know what I wanted to do after university. So I kind of decided to take this gap year of sorts. And then I realized, I can go backpacking. I heard about this backpacking trip. So I went off, never had a passport, never traveled, never done the hostel thing. All of a sudden took off for 10 months around the world, went through Central America, South America, Dubai, then spent 3 months in Southeast Asia, which is when I fell in love specifically with Vietnam, over to Egypt, finished in Europe and home. Ever since then, I've just been in love with travel and kind of not even just travel, but really going deeper and figuring out, what a country is all about far more than just surface level, which when you're backpacking allows you to really dig in. And so that's really where the passion was born. And then since there, it's my other main passion is conservation and wildlife, to be honest. And Southeast Asia isn't really known for that so much. And so professionally, I decided that my love for Southeast Asia and adventure there blended very well with my love for conservation, because I felt it was a place that really needed help through quality tourism. Africa, of course, and for good reason, gets all the love and attention in terms of conservation. Same with the Arctic and the polar bears and the pandas. No one really talks about the issue with tigers and the national parks and all that in Southeast Asia. So I thought through quality tourism, I could really blend my passion for conservation, wildlife, and adventure. And it all kind of met together in Southeast Asia for me.
Wow. Awesome. So I got so many questions for you about your 10 months abroad. Were you going by yourself? Were you with others throughout or during different parts of that?
Yeah. So originally I was actually going completely by myself. It was one of those things, I told all my siblings, I told all my friends, everyone kind of just about a year and a half in advance, because you need plenty of time to make that money to go. But I was originally going by myself, and honestly, everyone kind of laughed it off as just another wild Mike imagination dreamland. But once you tell me I can't do something is when I'm traditionally really going to do it. So planned, I was all set to go by myself. And then as happens in college, a very good friend of mine got into a breakup, all of a sudden jumped on, and then we were off on the world together. So yeah, me and my best friend.
Gosh, that sounds awesome. And I'm sure we're going to get to Vietnam here in just a second, but I'm sure you learned a ton of things during that experience. Was there anything that really, a life lesson that really stands out from you through those travels?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, being from Boston, I'm a very go type of person. I think that in general, it taught me a lot of patience. Because of course, when you're on these backpacking trips, things are going to go wrong. And actually, to be honest, some of those end up being my favorite stories, those wacky times where you're on this horrifying bus or you went to the wrong city or something like that. Yep. And that would be something that would probably annoy me to no end. But I just learned to go with the flow with it. And then and I think to me, that's the biggest takeaway.
Yeah. Wow. Awesome. And I'm sure you bring a lot of that mindset to the work that you're doing now. I mean, especially with what's going on in the world, you've got to be very fluid and you got to stay flexible. Yeah.
Yeah, patience and flexibility. I mean, it's all you can really do right now. I mean, everything it's ever evolving, and you take it one day at a time. There can be some tough days, there can be some great days, but in reality, to me, it's all about balance, really, and that's what I think these travels have always taught me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Awesome. Let's get into specific stuff about Vietnam here. I mean, there's so many different layers of this. It's such a deep and rich culture and destination. So you mentioned a little bit, you spent 3 months in Southeast Asia. What was it about Vietnam that was so inspiring and that really drew you to it?
Yeah, I think Vietnam to me is one of the most fiercely independent places I've ever been, in terms of how proud they are of their culture, and how much they kind of, yes, they do integrate a lot of things in, but even just something as little as you go to a GM you're in a hotel and you go to the GM, they're actually Vietnamese, unlike a lot of places where they're going to be Australian, they're going to be New Zealand, American. So that's really what I really enjoyed about it, is they're so prideful of their country and they take so much passion in it. So that really rubbed off on me. And then just all around, it's just spectacular, and it has a little bit of everything, which is, I'm not one to just go on a straight foodie adventure for 9 days or straight backpacking or anything. I like a mixture, and Vietnam has it all for me.
And how many times have you been to Vietnam?
Oof, yeah, I don't know. Many times. Very fortunate in that sense. So of that 3 months of backpacking, I would say I spent a full month going from Saigon in the south up all the way up to the north.
Yeah.
So I did the whole entire country for a month, and then since then professionally I've been back many times.
Yeah, yeah. So give us, if you will, I'm sure you do this often with the work that you do and that we do. But give us an introduction to Vietnam. Tell us sort of high level what we should know, what are the necessities, all of that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said earlier, one of the main things that drew me to Vietnam, and still does, is its sheer diversity, to be honest. And I feel like everyone says that about their country, and no one wants to be a one-trick pony. But in reality, Vietnam does have it all. I mean, you have the mountainous north where it sometimes snows. You don't think of that in Southeast Asia. High peaks. And then it has, of course, up there, the stunning rice terraces. It has Hanoi, which this capital of the north, which just has this very intense energy to it, with the motorbikes going everywhere, the little street stalls. It also has one of the biggest cave systems in the entire world, only recently discovered, although it's been there forever. Biggest cave system in the entire world, and so large that it has a full jungle growing in it, where the cave is broken open and the sun can come in. Beyond that, stunning beaches, beautiful remote islands. The Mekong Delta itself is like stepping into another world. So fantastic to see people who live in such harmony with the natural resources that are around them. So again, just everything from a geographical standpoint, but even more so, like I said, I like to do a bit of everything. You can eat there, you can bike there, you can go caving there, you can read about, or you can learn about ancient history, and of course more modern history, which the Americans will be familiar with, and the French and all that. So it really just has everything for you.
And so you mentioned there's like multiple geographic regions, right? So you've got the north, the central part, and the south. Can you sort of walked us through a little bit in the north, but specifically walk us through each of those in a little bit more detail?
Yeah, absolutely. So traditionally, the more traditional Vietnam itinerary will run north to south or vice versa. So as I said, we've already talked about the north. I didn't mention probably the most famous part, which is one of the, Ha Long Bay up there.
Yep.
Traditionally,
the Explorer X clients, we actually don't bring them to Ha Long Bay. We bring them to one of the off the beaten path bays, where they only have so many permits for the boats, so it's much more secluded and quiet. But then most people will go down to central Vietnam, which is famous for Hoi An, which is, has won Travel and Leisure's best city in the world a number of times. It's this ancient town with lanterns and everything. It's really, truly a magical place. Then there's also Hue as well, which is also in central Vietnam. They're actually split right down the middle by what's called the Hai Van Pass, the highest overland pass in Southeast Asia. It actually splits the climates as well. So you have on one side, you have Hue, which is famous for the Imperial Palace, and Anthony Bourdain's been there many times because it's very famous for its very specific type of royal food. And then you have Hoi An on this side. And then people will go down to southern Vietnam, which is Saigon, of course, the bustling capital, or Ho Chi Minh City. All our colleagues who live there actually call it Saigon, even though it's officially Ho Chi Minh City. But Ho Chi Minh City is a really fantastic mixture as well. I think it's a microcosm of Southeast Asia in general. It's really a booming business center that meets old. So you have skyscrapers next to ancient temples. And so really there, I think it's what's really fascinating about it. It's the new Vietnam meets the old Vietnam, but blend together. So for city-wise, it's buzzing and motorbikes galore there. And then of course in southern Vietnam, you have the famous Mekong Delta, which to me is actually one of my most favorite places in Vietnam, if not the world. I mean, it's just outstanding to see the people living down there.
So say more about that. What makes it so special for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's just because, the Mekong it's such a lifeblood for centuries upon centuries, for all of Southeast Asia. I mean, it affects all these countries and up and through China. And of course, where it spills out down there, I mean, and it was very important for so long because it's one of, if not the biggest rice producing area in the entire world. Mm-hmm. So of course, it was very important to everyone from the Khmer Empire, which is the Angkor Wat in Cambodia. The Khmer Empire wanted it, the French wanted it, everyone wanted it. But it's also retains elements of a rural lifestyle that's so different than what I live here in Denver, Colorado. And it's just like stepping back in time, and and the waterways and everyone using their boats to go around it's just something that you can't find in too many places in the world anymore.
Wow, that sounds amazing. I want to go back. You mentioned weather. I know the climate is varied to say the least. Can you tell us more about different climates and seasons and when to go and when to avoid, or all of those things?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So of course, I think when everyone's first planning a trip, one of the first things they will ask is about the weather, and for good reason. The good and the bad about Vietnam is that, like I said, it is split into northern Vietnam, central Vietnam, southern Vietnam. All three of those actually have very distinct seasons. So while it's really beautiful up in northern Vietnam, it might be rainy in central Vietnam and in middle season down in southern Vietnam. Now, like I said, most folks will travel the whole entire country in one go rather than stick in one region. So it's pretty common, for you to go somewhere that might not be optimal weather. But at the same time, Vietnam and most like the rest of Southeast Asia, it's not monsooning all day like everyone thinks. Usually it's, an hour or two of pouring rain at night, which is nice to bring the heat down. And in reality, when you're looking for those stunning pictures of the endless green rice fields and all that, that happens during the rainy season. You need rain. When you want to see the Mekong at its mightiest, you need rain. So to answer your question, truly there's no bad time to Vietnam. It's not like other countries that have a very distinct high season, low season. Which is great as well, because for tourist numbers, it spreads them out amongst 12 months rather than everyone trying to pack in for a 3-month period. So that's one of the best things about it. But you just have to be mindful and talk to your destination expert about where might be most important to you and what you're looking to do. And we can then all discuss about time of month and what would be best, or time of year.
Yeah. And we talk often about the idea of slow travel, right? And that so often people check boxes and say, okay, I've been there, I'm out of here, and I've done Vietnam, or I've done whatever destination. And what you're saying just sort of sounds like there are so many different things, from Hanoi to Halong Bay to the different bays up north and the fields and the mountains and all that. That would be an entire trip in and of itself, depending on how much time you have and are willing to spend. And you've got the central, right, with Hue and Hoi An and all the caves. Or the caves are in the central part in the national park there. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's about a 5-hour drive north from Hue.
Okay. Okay. So, but to really sort of center yourself, ground yourself, immerse yourself in that experience, you would need a significant period of time. And then the South with all the things with the Delta and Ho Chi Minh City and everything else. So it's, would you maybe recommend, if people have the ability to do it, to say, let's go and do 10 days here and 10 days here and spread it out that way?
Yeah, we definitely get a lot of people who will do at least 2 trips to Vietnam, and mostly they'll focus on one or the other. For example, I think what's really popular, I see a lot, people do northern and central Vietnam in one trip,
Okay.
and then come back and do southern Vietnam, and maybe combine that with Cambodia, since it's very easy to do overland or just by quick flight.
Yep. So that was another question I had for you, is like, what other, people that maybe have either extended periods of time or that do it like that, Cambodia, are there other countries or other destinations that really pair well with a trip to Vietnam?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Southeast Asia in general, I think that's why it's so popular for so many folks, is that you get to do a multi-country itinerary within a rather short amount of time. Of course, we don't want to rush you through things, but it's definitely, you don't have to fly 5 hours to go somewhere. It's a quick 1 hour flight. Or even more interesting is, I think nowadays, is something that we all specialize in, is I love me some overland crossings. Avoid the flight, avoid the nonsense at the airport, and go see places that most people fly over. We can get into that later a bit off the beaten path when we talk about off the beaten path places. But going back to your question, most popular is going to be Luang Prabang in Laos,
Yep.
Which is definitely a fantastic combination. And of course, Angkor Wat and Siem Reap, Cambodia is probably the most famous. A lot of people try to add on Thailand, or do a combo of Thailand. Honestly, I don't recommend it unless you have a good amount of time, because they're both very large countries and you'll be zooming through if you try to condense them into one trip that's too short.
Sure. Absolutely. Gosh, there's so many questions for you. Culture, culinary experiences, cuisine, say more about that. I mean, I know that's something that for a lot of our travelers that come to us, they when they think Vietnam, they think food. So share more about that.
Yeah, and for good reason. Vietnam, the food there is just unbelievable. And what I do think is interesting, and I alluded to it a bit earlier, is that throughout the whole entire country, it's very different. Southern cuisine is very different than central cuisine. And even then, Hue has a very specific royal cuisine. And then Hanoi in the north is totally different than the rest. So what we like to do is kind of do a little bit of a food experience in each different place, whether it be a cooking class in a local home, or taste testing all the street food stalls and all that, just so you can really get a sense of, it's spicy up here, they focus more on seafood down here and all that. But you cannot go wrong, whether it be fine dining to street stall food in Vietnam. It just getting hungry thinking about it.
And so there's lots of city-based, you talk about street food and all that stuff. What's it like out in the villages? What's it like out in the countryside? What are some of the experiences that people can have out there?
Yeah, and I think it's very important to combine all those to see the modern Vietnam in Ho Chi Minh City. But then sometimes all you have to do is you drive a couple hours outside of these cities, and it's like a totally different world. My most recent trip to Vietnam, we were actually in the cities outside of Hanoi, in a place, we did a little loop out there called, we went to Mai Chau, then we went down to a place called Pulong, and then we went to a place called Ninh Binh. In these places, there's a large number of different tribal communities. So one village, they're speaking one language and dressed completely different. And then 2 villages over, it's a completely different language. And I think that that's so fascinating. And, they're all excited to see you. And it's not overrun by Westerners by any stretch of the imagination. So they're still waving at you. All their kids are coming out. And there's just something so charming about it. And the idea of it is that you're just seeing people live in a totally different way of life than you would back home. And it's just eye-opening.
I love it. What are the different spiritual traditions there, and how prominent or relevant are they to daily life in Vietnam?
Yeah, it really depends where you are. Vietnam, instead of unlike its neighbors, which are all Theravada Buddhist. Yeah, I think it's a different type of Buddhism than it's actually from Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, Myanmar. It's actually much more closely related to the Chinese religion, which is actually why they also share the same, Chinese New Year, Vietnamese New Year, the exact same time. But beyond that, yeah, it's a mixture of things. Especially when you go up into the tribal communities. I mean, that's very animist, but mixed with the more traditional religions, which makes it very fascinating.
And is it a focal point of daily life as it is in some of the other destinations, or is it not as important, so to speak?
No, yeah, it's definitely not nearly as important as you'll see in Thailand, Cambodia, or Laos. It's was communist, so that kind of was the ideology for so long.
Sure.
And that kind of overtakes religion, unlike what you see elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. All right, so we've touched on some of the high level stuff. I want to kind of dive a little bit deeper here. We've talked a little bit about some of the experiences people can have in the village life. Obviously, one of the things that we try to balance with all of our travelers and everything is customized to personal preferences and things like that. But is the idea that we get them not only the classic experiences, if that's what they're searching and hoping for, but also, the really immersive, off the beaten path, deeper cultural experiences. So what are some of the things, I'm not sure how you want to frame this, if it's by region or just overall, some 2 or 3 things that you really look to include in itineraries as much as possible to get people that real sense of the authentic culture of Vietnam?
Yeah, of course. And, we talk about this classic route, but there's so much more beyond that. And I think as a responsible travel company, I think we all can all agree that traveler dispersal is incredibly important, not only because it's going to show our clients something unique and interesting, but it's also going to spread the tourism dollar much further than the major cities. And I think that that's very special. So with that, I mean, there's some outstanding places. For example, Con Dao is a really beautiful island off of the southern coast. It's very much underdeveloped. I think there's only a couple resorts that I can even think of on it, and then some guest houses and all that. This is that beautiful tropical island that everyone is looking for, that really paradise lost. And so I love to send people there rather than some of the more busy beach areas. With that, there's not a ton of nightlife or restaurants or anything, but if you're really looking to kind of, especially end your trip and kind of reflect on what you've just done, that's an outstanding place. I know I touched upon it earlier, but I think it's probably, it's becoming slowly but surely, it's going to become more and more famous. And my fear is that it's going to become overrun soon, is that cave complex in Phong Nha National Park.
Yep.
Everyone who goes there says it is truly a life-changing experience just to see how small you feel in these caves. And as of right now, the Vietnamese government is doing it very well. They're very strict on the number of people who can go. And so that's outstanding. So you still have this real sense of seclusion and wonder. I don't know how long that's going to last, honestly. So that's somewhere that I can never, that I can't recommend enough. Another place I really enjoy too is a place called Dalat. This is actually in South Vietnam, or between South and Central Vietnam. It's high up in the mountains. It's actually a former French hill station. It's where during colonial times that the French elite used to go to escape the heat of Saigon. It's a really fascinating place. It's a mixture. You almost feel like you're in Europe a bit with a Vietnamese touch. But if you're into adventure travel, it's the place to go. I've been abseiling there. I've been rafting there. Really great trekking. So if you really want to mix it up, if you've gotten the whole cultural thing, the culinary thing, and you really want to get into some hardcore adventure, Dalat's outstanding. And then lastly, I would say, because I have to, the national parks there are very undervalued. And I think that it's very important to continue to support national parks in not just Vietnam, but all of Southeast Asia. Cat Tien National Park, which is 4 hours north of Ho Chi Minh City, and Cuc Phuong National Park, which is about 3.5 hours south of Hanoi. Both can be done as a 2-night getaway from the main cities, are really outstanding. It is going to be deep jungle. There's great trekking, but what they're really trying to do is stop poaching, stop cutting of timber, and then, of course, trying to restore native wildlife to its habitat, which is near and dear to my heart. The more people we can send there, the more people we can get to fall in love with these really beautiful places, the better off these tourist dollars can go towards preserving them. And I think because they're not on the tourist trail, many people don't go, but having been there many times myself, they are jaw-droppingly beautiful with no lines, and you can really feel like you're giving back to something special.
Yeah. So you mentioned conservation is obviously an important or a passion of yours. What are some of the things that you're working on or contributing to that's really, not just in Vietnam, but throughout Southeast Asia that's so special?
Yeah, of course, mostly it's really pushing national parks just in general, because it's not what people think of when they go to Southeast Asia. They're going there for the history and the culture, which obviously they absolutely should, but they just simply don't know. And I think it's just a lack of awareness. So really for me, it's about bringing this awareness to clients and showing them that, there's places, for example, in Thailand, you can see herds of wild elephants. There's still wild tigers roaming there. In Vietnam, they're doing these really outstanding reintroductions of the species. And we can actually take our clients out to learn about this firsthand. And maybe if you're lucky, I can't guarantee it, but if it coincides properly, you can go out with a team of biologists. And we know all of them because we're so ingrained in the conservation community. And I think now more than ever, especially after pandemic, there's some really sad stories about people having to go back to poaching, having to go back to illegal cutting of timber, and all these just really horrific stories because of the loss of income. And for me, it's very important to bring back quality tourism and employ them in a way that not only are we feeding their families, but we're also helping, instill a sense of pride. I flew all the way across the world to see this beautiful place that's your backyard. Right. And I think people get really excited about it because we all, myself included, with the Rockies behind me, take for granted what's behind us until someone else points it out once in a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Take it for granted for sure. What you mentioned before that one of the things that you appreciate most about the tourism industry and the travel industry within Vietnam is that most of the places are locally owned. Do you know what percentage of dollars actually stay in country versus going out to big multinational corporations? Or maybe more broadly, how does it compare with other destinations around the world?
Yeah, I couldn't give you numbers wise, but I can just tell you, it's the easiest way for me to explain it is you just look at the hotel dynamics there, and in a place like Saigon, compared to a place like Bangkok has probably, I don't know, endless, but 30 of these chain-like hotels where Saigon has a fraction of them. Same thing with Hanoi. You don't really have, if you want to go, for example, high end, you stay in one hotel in Hanoi, which is the Sofitel Legend Metropole. But that's a historical, beautiful hotel. Talk about stepping back in time. Whereas if you go into these other places, the Dubais of the world and all this, there's going to be a Ritz-Carlton, there's going to be a Four Seasons, there's going to be this, that, the other thing. And there's just none of it there. They really stick to, the local owners in these really fantastic boutique resorts, which of course is what we all love to use as well.
Yeah. How for more of the city-based experiences, how big are some of these properties, these more boutique? Are we looking at 8, 10, 12 rooms? Are they a little bit bigger than that?
Yeah, it really depends. The city ones are, of course, bigger.
Yeah.
The Sofitel Legend, for example, is quite large.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say, but you can find some beautiful ones. For example, Villa Song, which is a really gorgeous 4.5-star hotel in Saigon, is a former colonial mansion, I believe. And so I think that's 8 rooms. Yeah. They're all very different from one another. And then in places like Hoi An and Hue, that's all boutique. You have one Four Seasons, but beyond that, all the ones in Old Town because you can only build so much in these Old Town places.
Sure,
so
sure,
they have
sure.
to remain small and
Yep.
very intimate and high-end level of service, which is just outstanding.
Yeah. How would you compare the cost of travel to Vietnam to other parts of the world?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, gosh, Vietnam and all of Southeast Asia in general is probably your best bang for your buck comparatively to anywhere. Even if you want to, you can spend on all these really, really fantastic private experiences.
Yeah.
But also, you're giving directly back to whether it be that gallery owner or the local family who's just had you in there. And then you have your private guide and driver and all that, and they're getting paid directly from you. But I mean, I can't even imagine compared to places like safaris in Africa and high-end Patagonia and Europe, it's a fraction.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we've had an opportunity to work with some travelers, and they've said, "Hey, we don't do this often, because it's stretching resources." But they say, "Hey, we're considering a trip to Vietnam or considering a trip to a different destination that would not be in Southeast Asia, and the quality will be the same, the number of days will be the same, and yet the value for the dollar is typically much, much higher in Vietnam. I mean, half the price in some cases, depending on where they're going, and yet still that same level of quality, not quality in the sense of the uber luxury properties, but the small boutique properties with the local owner that are really amazing. And then, as you said, and as you've harped on, appropriately so, the really immersive experiences that we can give to our travelers when they're in these destinations, which are really the highlight of the trip anyway.
Exactly. And I think that that's the key to it, is that you can do so much more. You can really dive into and really get that experience. And almost everything is going to be private for you. So you can be very flexible. If you're tired and it's hot, you want to go home and take a nap, the guide will drop you off for an hour or two, and you have a nap or a cocktail or whatever it might be, and you go back out. And so that's the other thing, is that from what you can get in Southeast Asia, you just have so much flexibility, which I think we understand going forward in the future of travel is going to be ever more important.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why this is coming up now, but I'm thinking about all these things and pulling it together. And it's like, the lazy example of how we sort of like to describe some of our approach to travel, specifically what we call the outer journey, right? Not the inner journey of learning and growth, but the outer journey of exploration discovery is oftentimes my brain goes to Anthony Bourdain. It's like that style where it's local places, it's local food, it's meeting with local people, it's going off the beaten path, it's really getting into the nitty gritty of a destination. And it sounds like Vietnam's a perfect place to do that.
Yeah, and it's funny you bring up Anthony Bourdain because I think in a lot of the city tours that we do here at ExploreX, we want to bring our clients. It's about taking a left when everyone goes right, and especially in the cities. And yes, you'll see a highlight or two, but what we want to do is bring you, where are the locals eating? Where are they drinking coffee? And funny enough, for many years, well before Obama and Anthony Bourdain did it, very well before, we were bringing all our clients to that pho place. And now, because we knew that was the spot for the local Vietnamese people, and then he went, and of course now, we can't, there's no way we can bring you back there, yeah. But we have another place, and that's how it is. And we really will, Michael, we utilize all our colleagues over there, and
Sure.
You just chat with them and say, where are you getting coffee? Where are you eating lunch? And then we incorporate that into the experience for the clientele.
Yep, absolutely. One of the things we often challenge our travelers to do is to connect with the local person, right? First of all, engage at a different level, right? And then when you do engage, you're connecting with somebody there, be curious. And one of the challenges that I often put out there is find a random local person that you have, whether it's somebody at the local bakery or whatever, doesn't matter, right? Ask them what their favorite place to grab lunch is and go do it. And bonus points if you ask them to come with you and sort of have that experience, while you're there. And you'd be surprised, maybe or maybe not, at how many of them talk about that being one of the highlights of their trip when they go and do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's what travel is all about. It's kind of pushing your boundaries a little bit, and maybe something that you wouldn't be comfortable with back home, but those are the stories you're going to come home and talk about much more than whatever hotel you stayed in or the day you laid on the beach, all fantastic parts of it.
Right.
But the real spark is going to come with those unique connections you make.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Okay. So that's a great segue. Thank you for that. Two, like, I want to hear more about, one or two of your stories that you can share, some of the things that you've experienced personally when you have been in Vietnam that have really been highlights for you over your life.
Yeah, of course. So I would say my most memorable experience, and it was very difficult, to be honest, but it stood with me and will forever, and I think was very important. Um, was one of our lead guides in the Central Highlands of Vietnam in Kon Tum. He's an older gentleman, but he had been around during the American War, and really truly hearing his stories, and I won't really go into the gory details, but about what happened to his family and directly in front of him, and to really hear those things. And yes, you can read books and you can watch many documentaries and all that, but to really put a face to these stories is so incredibly important. And I think not only just to hear them, but to learn about it, and so we can try to perhaps avoid future mistakes. And I think Vietnam, of course, that is why a lot of Americans unfortunately know it, is through that dark history. But it's very important to go there and learn about it. There's just no doubt about it. So hearing his personal stories was very eye-opening to me, even getting the hair on my arms is going up just thinking about it.
Wow.
He was a very special guy, and we had 45 minutes carved out for lunch. We sat for 2 hours drinking beers and just him telling stories. And so again, that's probably going to be my most forever memorable moment in Vietnam. On a more fun thing, I would say my favorite is, it's hard to comprehend the motorbikes there until you're actually seeing it. And just no traffic lights, everyone's moving. It's a symphony. I mean, it looks like a flock of birds, and and they're going around these roundabouts. Horrifying. I would never drive one personally myself, in the major cities at least. But one of my favorite experiences was hopping on the back of a local's motorbike and being taken around all of Saigon to their favorite food stalls. So that was really cool, because you actually got to be in the mix, but not so much actually, but not in control of it. So that was great. So then it was these university students. They brought us, or me and my friend, two university students. We each got on the back. We're driving through Saigon. They knew it was Westerners, so they're going a little slow on the side, but you still got the feel of it. And man, we tried. I think we stopped at 5 different food stalls, and they order for you. And I'm an adventurous eater, unlike you guys apparently. And so, throw me whatever. And that was probably one of the more fun nights I've had in Vietnam.
Oh, that sounds amazing. It is always those spontaneous sort of like, can't plan it, so make sure we carve out time for that to happen, right? Because it's always going to happen, right? It goes back to the idea of slow travel. We're running short on time here. I know Robin's got some rapid fire questions. I want to ask one more question of you before I stop talking. Do you have any sort of words of wisdom? We talk about wisdom and wanderlust. Any words of wisdom that you want to leave with our travelers as it relates to Vietnam, or just as it relates to travel in general?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if the last 5 months, which have honestly been very difficult personally, professionally, and everything in between, I think if it's taught us anything, it's that to grab and take an opportunity when you can. And I think honestly, travel is truly a gift, and it's something that I am so passionate about. I think about it beyond just work. I plan trips I've planned 3,000 trips during this pandemic in my head. I have a list like a king's scroll ready to go. But in reality there's so many places, even locally here in Colorado, the Great Sand Dunes National Park. I keep saying that I'll get there. And I think travel's a gift. And I think that if the last few months have taught us anything, it's to take the opportunity when you can. Even if it's just getting out and exploring your backyard, and then even more so, appreciate it when you're there, even more than you ever would. It's like when you have a cold and you're like, oh, just remember how good it was to breathe again, normal. but then you breathe normal again and you take that for granted. So
Yeah.
next time you travel, take the opportunity as soon as you can, and then appreciate it all that much more than you even did in the first place.
Yeah, amen to that, man. Words to live by. Thanks for that. Robin, I'm going to hand it over to you. Rapid fire.
Perfect. Thanks, you guys. I loved that conversation, and definitely words to live by for sure. So Mike, I have some rapid fire questions for you. So these are a few questions that I'll just ask you to answer with the first thing that comes to mind. It can be just one word or a short phrase. So I will go ahead and get started. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. First question is, if you could go anywhere in the world, it doesn't necessarily have to be Vietnam, but if you could go anywhere in the world right now, where would it be?
Buenos Aires.
Have you been?
Yes, multiple times.
Oh, nice.
Can I ask a follow-up? Robin,
Yeah.
is that
Yes.
permitted?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, why?
Oh, again, so Buenos Aires just has a certain energy to it to me. And I've always said this, Buenos Aires, and I swear I'm not just saying this for the sake of this webinar, Hanoi and Buenos Aires are my two favorite cities in the entire world. And it's something that's indescribable to me. It's just simply the energy, it's the people, and of course the food in both places.
Awesome.
Nice. So what's one essential item you always bring with you when you travel?
A book.
Is the book about the place that you're going, or just any book in general?
Any book. I can go, yeah, either way. I'm odd. I don't like to read a lot of books and study a ton before I go to a destination because I want to go in with be a bit of a blank canvas. I tend to read more about it after when I get home because I'm so inspired to learn more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you've been there, so you can picture everything that you're learning. Yeah. If you were to summarize Vietnam in one word or a short phrase, what would that be?
Hectic.
Yeah. Hectic, even so, not only in the cities, but just everywhere you go, or just.
Yeah, well, it's hectic in a much different way. Even out in the countryside, I mean, there's probably a karaoke bar somewhere, and there's plenty of rice wine to go around.
I love it. And then circling back to our question of the day, what's the most adventurous food experience you've had in Vietnam or otherwise?
Yeah, well, I would say all of my adventure experiences have come in Southeast Asia. Fried maggot.
Ooh,
Yeah.
what did you think of that? Based on your face, it doesn't. I don't think it was good.
Yeah, I mean, it's the insects really in all of Southeast Asia that get me. But the fried maggot was not to be too grotesque, but when you bite into it, the gooiness comes out, and the texture of it just really did not sit well in my mouth.
Oh man. All right. Well, I hope people aren't trying to go and get some food right now.
I know I was gonna go get some lunch. Now I might hold off a little bit.
That's all the rapid fire I have. So thanks, Mike.
Appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks, Robin. Thanks, Amanda, for everything. And Mike, thank you. It's been a ton of fun. We always love working with you. We always love talking to you. So it's been great to have you on here. Thanks for sharing your wisdom, sharing and instilling in all of us and rekindling that sense of wanderlust when we are maybe all struggling a little bit to get through this time when we can't travel. So we appreciate that very much, man. Before we go, just a few final notes to people. We are planning, Amanda and Mike are working hard on planning a small group journey to Vietnam sometime in 2022. As you can imagine, with the state of the world, things are a little bit in flux, but they are working behind the scenes to put something really, really unique, really special together. So stay tuned for that. If you want to learn more about that or stay on the mailing list to make sure that you're one of the first to know about that, just shoot us an email. Or if you have any questions for Mike, shoot us an email, vietnam@explorer-x.com, and we'll make sure to put you in touch with the right person there. Again, if you have general questions about ExplorerX, you can always shoot us an email to travel@explorer-x.com or hello@explorer-x.com. Either work. Obviously, you can learn more on our website, and then please be sure to follow us on social media at GoExplorerX. Next week, we have our awesome team in Norway. We're doing that at 9 a.m. Pacific time. Is that right, Robin?
Yep, that's right.
Awesome. And the focus of next week is all about living sort of in tune with nature. And there's a word that they use in Norwegian that I will not even begin to try to pronounce because it will not come out well. But we'll get a chance to talk to our colleagues there, and they'll share a lot more about that and their passion for nature next week. So Robin, Amanda, Mike, anything else before we go?
No, just thank you all so much for joining, and we hope to catch you on the other side over in Vietnam once it's possible.
Oh, that sounds great, man. I can't wait. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.